I did a video of the Fender Standard Telecaster and said if I got 2,000 likes, I would do the Stratocaster. So let's get into the geeky stuff of the Fender Standard Stratocaster. Okay, so what we have here is a 4-piece poplar body, and some people have been very divided on this. So you know, the original Made in Mexico Standard Series had 2, 3, 4-piece bodies of alder. My only issue, again, like I said, I'm not in the tone wood debate. I'm not into the thing. It's first of all, aesthetically, I think it looks better if it's 2 pieces or 1 piece, but I just don't think the poplar looks right. What I mean looks right is the grain in it just doesn't look right. You know, this does, when I think of the typical lower price Squier Affinity look, this guitar screams that. If you're new to Fender, you won't notice it, but if you're a connoisseur Fender, if you're a huge Fender fan, you just know how this looks. You know, this looks like this is the guitar that's at Costco. Let me know in the comments what you think of the way it looks. I just think it would look better if they either didn't expose the wood finish. And if this bugs you, then get the solid color one. And if it doesn't bug you, well then, great. We have a 1-piece flat sawn maple neck with a Indian laurel fretboard. Now, again, something that does have in common with the Telecaster version is there's no skunk stripe, because obviously this has a glued-on fretboard, so it doesn't really need it, but they did something different, which I thought was interesting, which is the truss rod adjustment. That is walnut. At least it looks walnut. It could be Indian laurel as well, but it typically on a Fender guitar, that would be walnut right there. If you're familiar with the Made in Mexico series, they have a black insert there, where the USA made ones have the walnut. I like that they used the right piece, you know, aesthetically. Just interesting choices they made. Interesting, I think. Headstock, we have a gloss polyurethane front with a satin polyurethane finish. This one doesn't look like it was yellow tinted at all, but it is a little darker. It looks nice. They have the Fender style tuners that look like the Ping style tuners. This looks exactly like Made in Mexico. The Tele ones were a little loose. These ones feel a little better. So it could have been just the ones I got were not great on that one. These consistently feel a little better. Obviously this is manufactured in Indonesia. We have a 2-point tremolo system with solid block saddles. And again, I pointed this out last time. Something I thought was odd, a choice, was to make these satin saddles instead of chrome. It's an aesthetic thing. Again, the thing that I don't like about it is it's just a reminder that you're not getting the real thing. But again, it might not bother any of you, and if it doesn't, then don't worry about it, and if it does, you're aware of it. We have volume, tone, 5-way switch. This is a mechanical switch. So the 3-way switch in the Tele was a PC board switch that I didn't think it was as robust. This one feels a little better, but we'll confirm that. You have the tremolo arm is a screw-in style. There is a spring in there. Usually when you see a sticker on a tremolo right here, our vibrato bridge from Fender, what that implies is that there's a little spring in there. So what it is there's a little spring that they put in there, and what that does is that when you tighten this, the tremolo arm or the vibrato arm down, what happens is eventually the spring compresses against it, like so, right? Like so. And it makes the tremolo arm tight. So that's really nice. So that's what makes it feel not so loose. Now you can do it to where it does kind of hang down when you want it, and then just do that. Or like I said, what's nice is when you tighten it up, it's the spring holding it taut like this. It's not actually just forced down, compressed. Something to be aware of is they are floating the bridge. So they are doing it the way pretty much every Fender ships out of the USA and Mexico as well. And so something to be aware of, that the way they bent this arm, which is typical on a lot of Strats, but specifically I've seen it with Squiers more so than Fenders, but it's typical, is if you tighten the screws on the back to tighten the springs to put the bridge flush against the body, this tremolo arm will then hit the body. See that? See how I'm doing that? So to fix that, be very careful, because some of these metals are soft. You could put this in a vise. Do not damage the threads, and you can bend this up a little bit so that it does not. But right now, if you were to block the trim, in other words, put the trim against the body, you're hitting the body. The reason I tell you to be careful is because the tremolo arms are made inexpensively. When you bend them, sometimes they can crack and break. In other words, you're taking it upon yourself. I'm just telling you how you do it. Don't call me if yours broke. I warned you, they can break. 21 medium jumbo frets, which we'll confirm with some measurements. And then a McCarty nut. McCarty? a carte nut, which I explained last time is the same material they make handles for knives out of. Let's see how they shipped it to us out of the box. So first thing we want to do is we want to check to see the relief. And looking at this, we have, I'm going to say 10,000ths of an inch. And well, I just want to look, so you see if we can visibly. The neck has quite a bit of relief in it. Ideal setting, or the typical setting we see on a guitar, is 6,000ths of an inch. So this has a little bit more relief in it than normal. Let's take a look at the action. Looking at the action. 0.175, so lower action than the telly they shipped us. 1.5 on the A, 1.5 on the D, 1.5 on the G. So the action is good. Given that there's a little relief in the neck, my guess is if you were tighten the neck a little bit, you might have some buzz. So what's funny about that is they might have, when they were doing a quick setup to ship the guitar out, played it, got a little buzz out of it, and just gave the neck a little bit of relief. Then we want to go ahead and check the intonation. So E is slightly out, A slightly out. All of the intonation is slightly out. It seems like it's all across the board, slightly, just a little sharp. I'll give that a not horrible. It's not necessarily so bad that we would say it's bad. I don't think the average player would notice it, but in a studio recording with it, you could hear some nuances, I'm sure. Okay, so a couple things to mention. The guitar came shipped with 9 to 42 gauge strings. We're gonna go ahead and check to see how they cut the nut slot. So starting with the low E, let's zero this out. And there we go. And they're at 23,000ths, and ideally we want to see that at 20,000ths. So the A string's at 15,000ths. We want to see that again at 20,000ths. So they cut that a little low. And the D string is at 16,000ths, and we want to see that at about 18,000ths. So that's a little low again. The G string is cut at 23,000ths, and we'd like to see that at 16,000ths. That was a little high. This is something I noticed with the other guitar too, just a little inconsistent up and down. The B string is at 22,000ths. We'd like to see that at about 16,000ths. And the high E string, we're at a 20,000ths, and we'd like to see that at 16,000ths. Some of the slots cut low, some of the slots cut too high. A little inconsistent, but they actually feel okay. I can't give this a good. It's borderline bad to not horrible. Let's go ahead and see if there's any dead frets. I'm happy to report no dead frets. Let's go ahead and do the sock test. What we do is we take a nylon sock and we see if there's any issues with the frets. And, oh, a little bit on this one, right there. You can see, look at that. Just a little teeny mark, but that's, you know, little teeny. So I'd say, let me double check it again. Yeah, little teeny mark right there. 4.5 out of 5. I mean, that's still pretty good. In other words, if you ran your bare hand on this, you're not feeling it. I don't feel any issues. This is so sensitive, it's going to find every issue. So that's a 4.5 out of 5. The bass side, and the bass side, definitely 4.5 out of 5. I actually gotta say, looking at it, it's a 5. Feeling it, it felt like it was snagging a little bit, but 4.5 out of 5. So again, fretwork is great. Let's go ahead and check the bridge. And what's funny on this bridge is there's a couple of the grub screws sticking out. So I'm kind of, but it's catching right there. Caught a little bit right there. You can see this. Whee, there you go. There's your issue. So a little bit there. But what's interesting is none of, let's switch camera angles. None of the screws are poking out. Oh, on the E, it's only on the A, and then on the G and the B. And they're not that bad. Well, they're not that bad until you get to here. So that's where it's catching. And so when playing, if you're palm muting, maybe you'd catch a little bit of that. So not so great, but keep in mind, I try to temper the criticism based on the price points. I'm just trying to translate what I'm seeing here so that if you're looking at this guitar, you can have a realistic expectation of what it is you're gonna get. Okay, now it's time to do some measurements. Let's take the nut. Looking at the nut width, we are at 42.84 millimeters, or 1.687, and the 12th fret is 51.98 millimeters, or 2.047. Now, this also has what they call a modern C carve. And we talked about that on the Telecaster. Now, this is the important part. I said I like the Telecaster standard better than this Strat. It is 90% of my decision on that is the neck. The neck on the Telecaster that I bought. The other thing I want to point out is that the fretboard edges are rounded over. I wouldn't say highly rolled like a vintage guitar, but definitely rolled over. Had a slightly rounded fretboard edge, rolled fretboard edge. Not heavily, but just nicely rolled, okay? The neck carve felt like a Made in Mexico standard or American standard back in the day before the professional series neck carve. To the point where, like I said, if you handed me the guitar holding the neck, I wouldn't notice anything. This neck I have held 1,000 times. This is a Squier neck carve. The C carve is not the same as the Made in Mexico and the Made in USA. And the fretboard edge is not sharp, so don't get that wrong, but it is definitely not rolled over. Where they didn't claim to be rolled over, but the other one felt rolled. And that could be, and this is to be very clear, that the maple necks are coming more rolled than the rosewood necks. It could be luck of the draw, all those things. Like I said, if you guys bought one of these, tell me what you discovered with your guitars. Put them in the comments, help everybody understand. You know, did you feel the same thing I'm getting, or you get something different? You know, in a perfect world, I'd buy 10 of these and go through 10 and give you the average of the 10, but you know, that's not the world we live in. This is already hard enough to buy a guitar and do a video of it. One, much less 10 of them. But neck carve, it's good. Like I said, it's a good neck. It's a good feeling guitar. This feels like a really nice affinity neck. In fact, the guitar all vibes like a really nice affinity Squier. That to some of you will be, you know, like, that's the end of this. You're like, I don't want this then. Some of you guys love the Squier stuff, and having a Fender logo on it would be a nice improvement. I actually see both opinions, but I'm just telling you what I feel. So how do you roll the fretboard edge on a fretboard if it doesn't come rolled? Well, I can't show you in a 30-second geeky tech tip, but I did make an in-depth video, and I'll put a link in the description down below that tells you what tools you'll need, the technique you're going to use, the cautions you should take, and generally get you set up and what fretboards can and cannot be rolled. Let's go ahead and confirm this like we did the other one. Since we know the other one came with the modern C carve, let's do a modern C carve. This carve is thinner. It's more dramatic in the carve. That's not it's bad, but it's different. It's funny that they're so different. So it makes me wonder if the Strats are just consistently different than the Tellys. I just personally think the Telly neck was a better feeling neck to my hand, especially if you're trying to get the Fender vibe. That's really the point of this is, you know, this says Fender on it, not Squier. Does it vibe Fender or does it vibe Squier? Nothing's wrong with either brand. I love both, but you know, if you're buying a Fender brand, you're hoping to get the consistency that you get from Fender. Let's go ahead and take the frets. Let's do the frets. Fret height is 0.051 or 1.31 millimeters. And the fret width is 2.66 millimeters or 0.103, which makes these medium to medium jumbo frets. Thickness of the neck at the first fret is 21.30 millimeters or 0.838. And on the 12th fret, we have the thickness at 21.93 millimeters or 0.863. Okay, so let's take a look at the resistance and the inductance. On the bridge pickup, we are sitting in at 5.15. The middle pickup is in at 5.12, and the neck is 5.15. So pretty straightforward. That's a very consistent set of pickups. Looking at the inductance of these pickups, we're going to say the bridge is at 3.34, the middle is at 3.35, and the neck is at 3.35. So this is very typical. So they're not doing anything different with the bridge pickup, like having an overwound or a stronger magnet in the bridge to make that a little hotter. So this is a traditional set where they're all the same. One thing I do want to point out though, is that this is the modern setup. You have the bridge pickup is standard, how it's wound, and the slugs are facing north. The middle pickup is reverse wound with the slugs facing south. So therefore your positions with your middle and bridge and middle and neck are going to be noiseless. Now let's go ahead and look at the inside of the electronics. So as you can see, they did shield the cavity. However, with the shielding paint, they did a bunch of things. First, they didn't put enough coats of it. Second, they missed all kinds of spots and didn't even really complete it. This is a very rushed job. This was like a check mark of, yeah, we did it, but did we do it well? No, this isn't done well. I have videos showing you guys how to do it well. You can look in the description how you can do it better than this. Looking at the electronics, exactly what I kind of assumed is they're using a mechanical 5-way switch, which is the same kind of switch that you see, you know, in the Made in Mexico and Made in USA models. You have 3 250K alpha pots with a 0.47 microfarad capacitor for your tone control. And then you have the 3 single coil pickups that are using ceramic bars with steel slugs. And these are very reminiscent to what we saw in the Made in Mexico standards for many years. It looks like they're trying to recreate the prior series. So obviously the prior Made in Mexico standard series, not what they do now with the Players 2 series, and recreate that as a guitar. That makes a lot of sense. Your output jack is not shielded, which is also very typical. And they're using a very basic output jack, as you can see there. Nothing, again, special, but nothing of concern. And for those of you that are curious, if you look at the back of the vibrato system, you can see here's your block for your tremolo. Do with that what you will. So obviously it's funny, same material as the Made in Mexico standard blocks. Also, the weight on this one is 7.43 pounds. And keep in mind, if there's anything you didn't hear me say in the video, there is a complete sheet and you can do an overview of it. If you click the link down below, it'll take you to it and you can read along with the video. Like I always say, none of it matters until we play it and hear how it sounds. I'm going to start with clean. I'm running the Synergy Syn 50 head into a 212 cabinet with some V30s, mic'd up with an SM57 and a room mic. I'm running the T Deluxe, which is a Fender tone in the clean channel, and a little bit of reverb. And I'm going to start with the neck and middle position, and we'll just run through some of the sounds and how the guitar plays. Okay, let's go to the neck position. Here we go. Let's go to the middle position. This is just the middle single coil pickup. And now I want to do the middle and the bridge position. Now what I want to do is switch it over to the lower gain setting of a Soldano preamp. Okay, so now what we want to do is go to the bridge and middle position. And last, we'll do the neck position. Okay, some thoughts real quick is the tremolo does pretty good. I mean, you're gonna knock it out of tune, but it's not been properly set up. I mean, it came out of the box, as we know, but pretty good. This feels to me much different than if you watch the other video of the standard Telecaster, where that felt like the neck felt like an actual, like a made in Mexico, made in the USA carve. This feels very familiar to the Affinity carve. And a couple of the other Squiers I played, where it's kind of Fender-esque. The edge is harsh, and it's not rolled over very nice. The overall vibe of the guitar is a Squier. It's got the same hues and colors that the Squiers have, where it's a little bright. Without a doubt, here's what I would pick. I'd pick a Squier Affinity over this for the price. I would pick a used Made in Mexico over this for the price. Without a doubt, no question about it. I mean, a Made in Mexico Strat for used in the market is not going to cost you more than $600 for the most part. Way better than this, as long as it's comparable in condition. So there's just nothing about this guitar that's appealing to me other than the Fender logo. Like I said, if this was a Squier, this said Squier right here, and we were talking about $399. I said on the Telecaster, I thought the price on that one should be $499. Basically, the $100 bump for the Fender logo. I would say this one, I would say $399. $429 max is what I think this guitar feels like what it is for what's out there. There are so many brands out there that are giving you much better guitar for much less, but I know, the whole point is to own a Fender. I'd say Fender hasn't got there yet. This isn't a really impressive launch from the Fender guys. That's just how I feel going through the guitar and as a recommendation. But if you really want it and you got $600, I guess do whatever you want, as always. But I would definitely highly hope that you would try this and compare it against a Made in Mexico Players 1 or 2 or Mexican Standard from the past. And also try a couple Squiers, because I don't think you're going to get much for this for $600 that you can't get better for the same $600 or is equal to for much less. In fact, that's the takeaway here. For less than this, you can get something as good as this. And for about what this costs or a little bit more, you can get something better than this. So it doesn't win for me. On that note, I'm going to thank you guys for your time. To the next time, know your gear.